Did you watch Biden over the past couple of days? I think Monday when he showed up in Kyiv. That was impressive. No, seriously, it really was. I think one of the reasons Biden did this, although it would probably not be admitted to, is he is determined to show people that he still has the vigor, as John Kennedy used to call it, the vigor necessary to continue as president and even serve another 5 years. You think? Whatever his reasoning was, it was damned impressive to see him walking the streets of Kyiv, Ukraine, while air raid sirens are going off in the background, along with President Zelensky. Can you imagine one of these scum-sucking Republicans, if they were ever president, doing such a thing? No, neither can I. Oh, my God. And then today, Tuesday, his speech in Poland, it was a boilerplate speech. Okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we will stand with you forever. I've got some comments or some quotes from that speech here in a moment. But there he was, the president. Now, before I get into it, I want to mention my sponsor tonight. Yes, we have one, Tyron Moss. Ty has sponsored before. He's back again. Thank you, Tyron. May I call you Ty? Tyron Moss. And his message, Mike, hope all is well. Just wanted to send positive vibes to you and all the listeners. Peace. Well, that's a nice message, isn't it? Thank you, Tyron. Tyron Moss, our sponsor tonight. You can sponsor also. You know how to do it. Go to MikeMalloy.com. The information is there, right? And we need you. I will not mince words. We need you to keep this podcast going. And while you're there, check out River Moon Coffee. I always will say that because it's such a good product. Our only little personal private sponsor of this podcast is River Moon Coffee. Check them out. There's a link to their website at MikeMalloy.com. Okay? Okay. Getting back to Biden today, this morning, our time this morning, from Warsaw. It was, like I said, the speech was typical boilerplate. What I, and possibly you, would expect from a president in Biden's situation, dealing with NATO, dealing with a crazy bastard like Putin, dealing with the terrible situation in Ukraine, and dealing with the Russian fifth column back here in the United States. The America haters, led by Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Q bitch from over here in central Georgia. The Q bitch is just declaring herself to be pro-Putin. She's not pro-Russian. She couldn't tell you the first thing about Russia and probably couldn't find it on a map. But she is pro-Putin because Putin is a totalitarian, he's an authoritarian, he's a dictator. And this is what scum like Marjorie Taylor Greene are all about. And, and her cadre, you know who they are. But as far as Biden's speech, and this is going to sound petty, but I'm entitled to be petty once in a while, right? Huh? I just wish Biden wouldn't yell. Now, okay. I know what you're saying. Malloy, you yell all the time. Well, there's a difference. I'm yelling into a microphone. I'm yelling because I'm thoroughly pissed off and about a certain topic. And I may be wrong, but I think Biden was yelling into the microphone at his speech in Warsaw this morning because he was trying to be emphatic. I've noticed that about a lot of politicians. I'm sure you have too. When they want to be emphatic, they yell, as if yelling sentences that could be just as well delivered in a normal tone of voice. When they start yelling like that, it's usually to show that they are so determined to make the point. And it was just, I told you it'd be petty. But after a while, I'm sitting there glued to the television watching the speech because I wanted to see it, wanted to hear what he was going to say, even though I could have guessed it, and so could you have guessed most of it. But it was just very off-putting. Somebody needs to tell President Biden, sir, you don't have to yell. You really don't have to yell. And the other thing that he does, this is going to be even more petty. The other thing he does, that look he puts on his face when he's trying to show that he's pissed off and being defiant. And I know it comes from his working class background. Okay, that's fine. His Irish working class background, right? But when he makes a statement and his eyes get sort of narrow and his jaw just juts out just a little bit and his lips are partly open, he's got that look on his face that to me says, you want to fight, you son of a bitch? Come on. And it's just not necessary, Mr. President. Well, I told you to be petty, okay? I have nothing of any consequence to say about the substance of what he said in both Kyiv and Warsaw. I really don't. I have great respect for the fact that he went to both places. And this is separate from whatever consequences I feel the United States brought upon itself with our violating the promises we made to Gorbachev that we would back off from trying to convince the countries on the western border of Russia to join NATO. We are where we are. Global politics to me is the root of so much of the problems that we have. International problems, whether it's poverty or hunger or global climate change or the threat of nuclear weapons. All of it tied together to me can come back to this crazy idea that certain patches of land belong to certain people because they speak certain languages or they look a certain way. I can't fully understand that. If the human species can survive for another 500 or 600 years, if it takes that long, maybe the time will come when these international boundaries will be dissolved and seen for what they are. It's bullshit. I mean, it's total bullshit. It really is. I mean, who owns the Himalaya Mountains, right? Who owns the Yangtze River, right? Who owns the Nile? I mean, who decided on the boundaries of different countries? How were those decided? So many boundaries were decided by colonial powers, whose boundaries for themselves were defined by what tribe of Stone Age or Iron Age humans could kill the biggest number of the tribe up the road. I mean, it's crazy. It is totally crazy, but here we are. And of course, one of the biggest contributing factors to this madness is 3, 2, 1. Right. Religion. Biden said, quote, "We will not tire." And he said this a few hours after the dictator, Vladimir Putin, delivered his speech to that roomful. Did you see that video? Roomful of sour-looking Russians. What is it about, Russian legislators? I don't know if he's speaking in front of the Russian parliament. I have no idea. But that big crowd of people who sat there, they looked almost like they were in North Korea and that Kim Sung-gung-pung was speaking. It's so sad. It's sad to me because, I've always been so taken with Russian literature, the Russian literature that I can understand, the novels where, I can keep track of the first 30 or 40 characters that the author introduces me to without getting lost. Russian music, Russian dance, Russian composers. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And then we have Putin. And before Putin, with the exception of Gorbachev, we have a whole string of dictators, and with the exception of the drunk Yeltsin, who was kind of a buffoon, who almost threw the entire country into a second Russian Revolution. That was very close. But the Russian people have never had a chance. They really haven't. To exist without the threat of death and destruction if they didn't do whatever their leader said. If their leader was the Politburo or a czar or some tribal chieftain 5,000 years ago, the poor Russian people. But anyway, in that speech today of Biden's, not Putin's, Putin is just a rotten bastard. He is Marjorie Taylor Greene's hero. He's Trump's mentor. But Biden vowed that the U.S. would be steadfast in our support of Ukraine. And I think this is correct in a way. I can't go 100% here, but he described the American commitment to NATO and Ukraine as a battle for freedom against autocracy. What is interesting to me, he was speaking in a country that is run by an autocrat. What's the guy's name? I forget the president of Poland. What his name is, damn it. But he is a totalitarian also. And he is run, the president of Poland is run more or less by the Polish Catholic Church. And the Polish Catholic Church has pretty much rewritten, either directly or in the process of enforcement, the entire penal code for Poland, much as the church did in Ireland before the Irish finally said, screw this, and got rid of that bullshit. So Poland is itself a Christian fascist country. It is. It simply is. Check it out. But there he was, our president, talking about our commitment to Ukraine is a battle for freedom against autocracy, with which I agree. And he delivered that speech just a few hours after his trip to Kyiv. I got to give this guy credit. I mean, he didn't even take Air Force One, the big hulking 747. What did he take, a C-130 transport or something? Kind of a modified, about the size of a 737, and flew. Where'd he go to? He flew to, I guess, to Ramstein Air Base or someplace in Germany, and they got on a train and went to Kyiv. Is that how it worked? And they also sent a note, they being the American government, sent a note to Putin that more or less said, the president's coming, President of the United States is coming, you better be very, very careful what you do for the next 36 hours while he's there, because you don't want to see Moscow disappear in a flash of light. So just back off. So that brief but dramatic visit to Kyiv was very impressive to me. It just was. For the bravery, for the political theater of it all. And, Putin can't travel 10 feet without having an armed guard surrounding him. Because Putin is a dictator, and all dictators understand that somebody is out there wanting to kill him. And that somebody will kill him unless he surrounds himself with this cadre of guards. So I'm sure it was it pointed out Putin's cowardice, Biden's trip to Kyiv. It showed that people like Putin, people like Trump, Netanyahu is another one. All these people are just goddamn cowards. Down to the core of their being, whatever core is in there. They don't have souls. They don't have any sense of ethics. But that was the most impressive thing to me about Biden's visit to Kyiv, was the fact that he actually did it. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. The Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.